Emma settled into the chair beside them, crossing her legs, her fingers grazing the rim of her glass. James and Sophie moved together, hesitant at first, then finding a rhythm. Sophie gasped, James's hands guiding her, his touch slow and deliberate. Emma exhaled warmth spreading through her as she watched. She had planned to stay on the sidelines, but the longer she sat there, the harder it was to resist. Before we begin, please tap like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow, and if you already have, thank you for being here. Now let's get started. I swear I don't even remember what it feels like to be with a man. Sophie sighed, sinking into the couch. Emma laughed, swirling her wine. That's honestly tragic, Sophie groaned. It is. It's been months, maybe even a year. Emma shook her head. Couldn't be me. I don't think I could last a week without jumping James. Sophie rolled her eyes. Yeah, we get it. You won the husband lottery. Emma smirked. I did though. James knows exactly how to handle a woman. Sophie let out a long breath. Must be nice. Emma tilted her head, studying Sophie. She looked drained, not just tired, but empty. Maybe Sophie missed companionship, but Emma had a feeling this was about something more physical. Maybe that's the problem, Emma mused. Sophie frowned. What problem? Emma leaned in slightly. You think you're feeling like this because of your divorce, but maybe you just need a man who actually knows what he's doing. Sophie's head snapped up, eyes wide. Excuse me? Emma just smiled, taking another sip. I mean, you wouldn't have to go looking. Sophie blinked. What does that mean? Emma let the silence stretch before finally speaking. What if I lent you James? Sophie's breath hitched. You're kidding. Emma kept smiling. Later that day, Emma and James were tangled in bedskin-damp bodies, humming with the afterglow. Emma stretched, running lazy fingers over James's chest, still basking in the satisfaction only he could give her. That was amazing, she murmured. James smirked, eyes half-lidded. As always, Emma let the silence linger, letting the warmth settle between them. Then casually she said, Sophie needs this. James's brow furrowed. Who? Sophie. Emma said, propping herself up on one elbow. She's miserable, lonely. I think she just needs to feel wanted again. James frowned, still not following. Emma trailed her nails over his stomach, feeling his breath hitch. And maybe you could help? His body tensed. Wait, you're serious? Emma nodded. Sophie needs to feel desired, and you know exactly how to make a woman feel good. James exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. I don't know. Emma leaned in, pressing her lips against his jaw. I'd be there watching, guiding. His breath wavered. Emma could feel the hesitation in him, but also the curiosity. You trust me, don't you? She whispered. His fingers twitched at her waist, his grip tightening slightly. Emma could tell she already had him. The next morning, Emma poured coffee as James walked into the kitchen, still groggy. We should invite Sophie over, Emma said, handing him a mug. James frowned. For? Emma met his gaze. To talk. He hesitated. And by talk, you mean? Emma smirked. You'll see. A pause. James exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck, but he didn't say no. That was enough. Emma sent the text. Sophie answered almost immediately. Sure, I could use the company. When Sophie arrived, she looked tired, like she hadn't fully shaken off whatever weight she was carrying, but her eyes were clearer, more curious. They sat down, coffee in hand. Emma let the moment settle before tilting her head. "Been thinking about what we talked about?" Sophie gave Emma a sly glance. "Maybe." Emma smiled and Sophie sighed. "I mean, I get what you were saying, but it's not exactly easy to just—" She gestured vaguely. Emma leaned in slightly. "What if it was—" Sophie's brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" Emma reached for James's wrist, running her fingers over his skin. Sophie's eyes flickered between them. "We want to help," Emma murmured. Silence. Sophie blinked. "You're serious?" Emma nodded. Sophie swallowed her gaze, shifting between Emma and James, searching for something. Emma held her stare. "You trust me, don't you?" A long pause. Then finally Sophie set her coffee down. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Emma smiled. "Let me show you." Emma led them into the bedroom. Her breath steady, her pulse a slow thrum beneath her skin. But inside she was burning. Sophie followed hesitantly, her movements careful. Uncertain James, on the other hand, walked in with quiet tension in his frame, like he was still processing what was about to happen. Emma knew exactly what she was doing. She turned to James first, trailing her fingers down his chest, peeling away his shirt with deliberate ease. His breathing deepened, his muscles flexing slightly under her touch. Then Emma faced Sophie. She stood still, caught between anticipation and hesitation. Her lips parted, as if waiting for permission. Emma smiled, sliding her hands over Sophie's shoulders, teasing the fabric of her top. Sophie didn't pull away, so Emma took her time. The first piece of clothing hit the floor, then another. The weight in the air shifted. James reached for Sophie, his hands moving slow, deliberate. His hesitation was still there, but his touch was steady. Sophie exhaled shakily, sinking into his warmth, letting him guide her. Emma stepped back, lowering herself onto the chair beside the bed, watching, taking in the way James's hands explored Sophie, the way Sophie responded. The quiet gasp slipping past her lips. Emma crossed her legs, the pressure sending a pulse of heat through her. This was what she wanted to see James like this, to see Sophie like this, to feel the tension. Coil tighter, hotter. James's lips found Sophie's neck, tracing lower, his hands mapping her curves. Sophie arched under him, her body reacting to every touch, every slow movement. Emma shifted, pressing her thighs together as warmth spread through her, her breath turning shallow. Her fingers skimmed the hem of her dress, the heat between her legs becoming a slow, aching pulse. "Just like that," Emma murmured, her voice low, encouraging. "Take your time with her." James did. His lips pressed lower, trailing along Sophie's skin, his hand steady as he guided her back against the mattress. Sophie melted beneath him, a soft sigh escaping her lips, her fingers weaving into his hair. Emma dragged her nails lightly over her exposed thigh, the tingling sensation sending another wave of need through her. Sophie was beautiful. So was James. And together they were something even more intoxicating. Emma traced slow, lazy circles against the sensitive skin beneath her dress, teasing herself, matching the rhythm of their movements. James's hands slid lower, drawing a sharp inhale from Sophie's lips. Sophie's fingers dug into his shoulders, her body trembling beneath his touch. Emma bit her lip, her breathing uneven, watching as Sophie surrendered to him. "Do you like the way he touches you?" Emma asked, her voice smooth teasing. Sophie didn't answer. Not with words, but the way her breath hitched, the way she clung to him was enough. The sounds filled the space. The slow, deliberate movements, the heat radiating between them. Emma had thought she could just sit there. Just watch. Just enjoy. But as the tension tightened, as the pleasure built between them, she realized something else. She was getting restless, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could stay on the sidelines. Emma was burning. The warmth in her body had built too high, the tension wound too tight. Every glance, every breath, every soft sound that filled the room made it harder to stay on the sidelines, and she didn't want to anymore. She rose from the chair, stepping closer, letting her fingertips graze along James's arm. His breath hitched his gaze, flicking to hers, deep and unreadable. Sophie turned, too. Her expression caught between hesitation and something eager. Emma smiled. "Slow, knowing, move up," she murmured, brushing her fingers through James's hair, guiding him back against the pillows. He obeyed without question, his chest rising and falling heavily, his body tense beneath her touch. Then Emma turned to Sophie. "Come here," she said softly, her voice thick with warmth, with promise. Sophie hesitated, her breath uneven, but then she followed. She shifted into place, settling into James, her body moulding against his as he steadied her, his hands firm at her sides. Emma watched, taking in the way they moved together, the silent communication between them, the heat humming between all of them. Then she climbed onto the bed, positioning herself above James, her hands settling at his shoulders. His breath was warm, sending a shiver up her spine. Emma leaned forward, her hands brushing against Sophie's arms, steadying her, guiding her. "Just like that," she whispered against Sophie's lips, tilting her chin toward her. "Let me help you." Sophie exhaled sharply as Emma pressed her mouth to hers, tasting the heat still lingering on her skin. Sophie melted into her, her fingers curling at Emma's waist, letting her take control, letting her lead. Emma deepened the kiss, her hands sliding to Sophie's sides, helping her find the rhythm, setting the pace. Sophie followed her lead, her body moving in sync with Emma's, their breaths tangling together. Below them, James groaned, his fingers pressing into Emma's back as he pulled her closer. A sharp wave of warmth shot through Emma, making her gasp against Sophie's lips. Emma tangled her fingers in Sophie's hair, tilting her head to deepen the kiss. The softness of Sophie's skin, the way her body reacted beneath Emma's hands, only made the fire inside her burn hotter. She could feel the tension building, all of them trembling on the edge. The anticipation tightening with every movement, every touch, every sound. Sophie's breath turned unsteady, her grip tightening on Emma. James's hands flexed at Emma's sides, his body tensing beneath them. It was overwhelming. The energy coiled sharp and consuming until finally it unraveled. A rush of warmth spread through Emma, her body trembling, her breath catching in short, broken gasps. She felt them tense around her, the weight of the moment pressing into all of them, filling the room with lingering heat and satisfaction. For a long moment none of them moved. The air was thick with warmth. Their bodies tangled, their breaths uneven. Then Emma collapsed onto the bed, stretching lazily, a slow, satisfied smile curving her lips. Sophie let out a shaky laugh, brushing her fingers through her tousled hair. James exhaled deeply, his arm draping over Emma's stomach, his grip possessive even in the aftermath. Emma turned her head, glancing between them, her heart still racing. She had wanted to give Sophie something she needed, but she hadn't expected just how much she would enjoy it herself, and she wasn't sure she wanted this to be the last time. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the tangled sheets and the slow rise and fall of steady breaths. Emma stretched lazily, her body still humming with the remnants of the night before. Beside her, James stirred his arm, draped possessively over her waist. On the other side, Sophie shifted her fingers, brushing absent-mindedly against Emma's skin. There was no awkwardness, no regret. Just a quiet, lingering warmth that settled deep in Emma's bones. She turned her head, glancing between them, a knowing smile playing at her lips. Last night had been about Sophie, about giving her something she needed, but now Emma knew better. She had enjoyed this just as much, maybe even more. And as she traced lazy circles against James's chest, she knew one thing for certain. This wouldn't be the last time. Emma told herself this was just for Sophie, just to help her feel better. But now she wasn't so sure. Was this something only the bold would dare to try? Or did some secrets belong in the dark? She let the question linger her mind, drifting to the possibilities. The night had unlocked something in her. A curiosity she hadn't anticipated, a hunger for more. She glanced at Sophie, who was now sitting up, her hair falling in soft waves over her shoulders, her expression unreadable but calm. James shifted beside her, his hand still resting on her waist, his eyes half open, watching her with a quiet intensity. Emma sat up, pulling the sheet around her, her mind racing. "So," she said, her voice light but deliberate. "How are we feeling about last night?" Sophie let out a soft laugh, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I don't even know where to start," she said, her voice tinged with a mix of amusement and vulnerability. "It was unexpected, but good. Really good." Emma smiled, her gaze flicking to James. "And you?" James exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "I'm still processing," he admitted, his voice low. "But yeah, it was intense." His eyes met hers, and Emma could see the flicker of something there. Curiosity, maybe, or something deeper. She leaned back against the headboard, letting the silence settle. The air was still heavy with the remnants of their shared experience. But there was a new energy now, a question hanging between them. What next? Emma had orchestrated this night for Sophie. But now she was the one feeling restless, craving something more. She traced her fingers along the edge of the sheet, her thoughts spiraling. Could they do this again? Should they? And if they did, what would it mean for her marriage, for her friendship with Sophie, for the boundaries they had so carefully navigated? "I meant what I said," Emma said finally, her voice steady but soft. "I wanted to help you, Sophie, but I think I got more out of it than I expected." Sophie tilted her head, her eyes searching Emma's face. "What do you mean?" Emma hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I thought I was just doing this for you to make you feel wanted again. But watching you with James being part of it, it woke something up in me. Something I didn't know was there." James shifted, his hand tightening slightly on her waist. "Emma," he said, his voice cautious but curious. "What are you saying?" She turned to him, her gaze steady. "I'm saying I liked it more than I thought I would, and I don't think I want it to be a one-time thing." The words hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Sophie's breath caught her eyes widening slightly. "You mean you want to do this again?" Emma nodded, her lips curving into a slow smile. "If you're both up for it." James exhaled, his expression caught between surprise and intrigue. "You're serious?" he said, not quite a question. Emma reached for his hand, lacing her fingers through his. I trust you. I trust us. And I think we could make this work if we wanted to. Sophie was quiet for a long moment, her fingers twisting in the sheet. I don't know, she said finally, her voice soft. Last night was incredible, but I'm not sure I know how to navigate something like this. It's complicated. Emma leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. It doesn't have to be. We set the rules. We decide what this is. Sophie met her gaze, her expression conflicted. And what about? And what? Feelings. What if this changes things between us, between you and James? Emma felt a flicker of uncertainty, but she pushed it aside. We'll talk about it. We'll be honest. That's the only way this works. James cleared his throat, breaking the tension. I need to be honest, he said, his voice steady. Last night was more than I expected. I went along with it because you wanted it, Emma. But I didn't realize how much it would affect me. I'm not saying no, but I need to know we're all on the same page. Emma squeezed his hand, her heart swelling with affection. We will be, she said. We'll figure it out together. The conversation paused as they each retreated into their thoughts. Emma could feel the weight of the moment, the delicate balance they were trying to strike. She had always been the one to push boundaries, to chase what felt good. But this was different. This was uncharted territory, and for the first time she felt a flicker of doubt. Could they really make this work, without someone getting hurt? She glanced at Sophie, who was staring at the ceiling, her expression unreadable. Then she looked at James, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed on her. She knew they were both waiting for her to lead to set the tone. Let's take it slow, Emma said finally, her voice calm but decisive. We don't have to decide everything now, but I think we owe it to ourselves to explore this, to see where it takes us. Sophie let out a shaky breath, a small smile tugging at her lips. You're impossible, you know that. Emma grinned. And you love it. Sophie laughed, the tension easing slightly. Maybe I do. James shook his head, a reluctant smile breaking through. You're going to be the death of me, Emma. She leaned over, pressing a soft kiss to his lips. But you'll enjoy every second of it. The rest of the morning passed in a quiet, comfortable haze. They showered, dressed, and made breakfast together, moving around each other with a new kind of ease. There were stolen glances, lingering touches, moments where the air seemed to hum with unspoken possibilities. Emma watched Sophie as she flipped pancakes, her movements more relaxed than they had been in months. She watched James as he poured coffee, his eyes catching hers with a warmth that made her heart skip. This was new, fragile, but it felt right. Over the next few days, Emma couldn't stop thinking about that night. It was like a spark had been lit inside her, burning, brighter with every passing moment. She found herself daydreaming at work, her mind drifting to the way Sophie's breath had hitched, the way James's hands had moved with such deliberate care. She wanted more. Not just the physical connection, but the thrill of pushing boundaries, of exploring something forbidden and exhilarating. She knew it was risky, but that only made it more intoxicating. She brought it up again one evening as she and James sat on the couch, a bottle of wine between them. "Have you thought about it?" she asked, her voice casual but her eyes sharp, watching his reaction. James took a slow sip of his wine, his expression guarded. You mean Sophie? Emma nodded. And us. All of us. He set his glass down, leaning back against the cushions. I have, he admitted. It's complicated. I don't want to hurt you or her. Emma reached for his hand. Her touch reassuring. You won't. Not if we're honest. Not if we do this together. James studied her for a long moment, his eyes searching hers. You're really sure about this? She nodded, her heart pounding. I am. The next step was talking to Sophie. Emma invited her over for dinner, keeping the mood light but purposeful. They laughed over pasta and wine, reminiscing about old times. But Emma could feel the undercurrent of tension, the unspoken question lingering in the air. After dinner, as they sat in the living room, Emma broached the subject. Sophie, she said, her voice soft but direct. Have you thought about what happened? About what it could mean? Sophie froze her glass halfway to her lips. She set it down, her eyes flickering between Emma and James. I have, she said carefully. It was incredible, but I'm scared I don't want to mess things up between us or between you two. Emma leaned forward, her voice steady. You won't. Not if we do this right. We set boundaries, we communicate. We make sure everyone feels safe. Sophie bit her lip, her expression torn. And what is this exactly? A fling? Something more? Emma hesitated, glancing at James. He gave her a small nod, encouraging her to take the lead. It can be whatever we want it to be, Emma said. But I know one thing I don't want it to end. Sophie let out a shaky laugh, running a hand through her hair. You're crazy. You know that. Emma grinned. Maybe. But you didn't say no. Sophie shook her head, a reluctant smile breaking through. I haven't said yes either. The conversation ended without a firm decision, but Emma could feel the shift. Sophie was intrigued, tempted even if she wasn't ready to admit it. Over the next week, the three of them spent more time together. Dinners, movie nights, casual hangouts that carried a subtle charge of anticipation. Emma noticed the way Sophie's eyes lingered on James, the way James's touch lingered on her own skin. She noticed the way her own pulse quickened when Sophie laughed, when their hands brushed by accident. It was a slow burn, a tension building with every shared moment, every unspoken glance. One night, as they sat on the couch watching a movie, Emma made her move. She reached for Sophie's hand, her touch light but deliberate. Sophie froze, her breath catching, but she didn't pull away. Emma leaned in, her lips brushing against Sophie's ear. Stay tonight, she whispered. Sophie's eyes widened, her gaze flicking to James. He was watching them, his expression unreadable, but his eyes dark with something that made Emma's heart race. Sophie swallowed her voice barely above a whisper. Are you sure? Emma nodded, her smile slow and confident. I'm sure. That night they crossed the line again. It was different this time, less hesitant, more deliberate, as if they were all testing the waters of this new dynamic. Emma guided them, her hand steady, her voice soft but commanding. She revelled in the way Sophie responded to her touch, the way James's eyes burned as he watched them. The air was thick with heat, with possibility, and when it was over they collapsed together, breathless and satisfied, their bodies tangled in a way that felt both new and familiar. In the weeks that followed, they settled into a rhythm. They met regularly, sometimes at Emma and James's house, sometimes at Sophie's apartment. They set rules. No secrets, no jealousy, complete honesty. But Emma could feel the undercurrents, the moments of tension that flared when Sophie lingered too long in James's arms, or when James's gaze softened as he looked at Sophie. She told herself it was fine that they were all adults, that they could handle this, but deep down she wondered if she was playing with fire. One evening, as they sat together after dinner, Sophie brought it up. "I need to say something," she said, her voice quiet but firm. Emma's heart skipped her stomach, tightening. "What is it?" Sophie took a deep breath, her eyes flickering between them. "I'm starting to feel more. For both of you. And it scares me." Emma froze, her mind racing. She had anticipated this, but hearing it out loud was different. James shifted his hand, tightening on Emma's knee. "What do you mean, more?" he asked. His voice careful. Sophie bit her lip, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I don't know. I just know that this isn't just physical for me anymore, and I don't know what to do about it." Emma felt a pang of something, fear maybe, or jealousy, or even excitement. She reached for Sophie's hand, her touch gentle. "Thank you for being honest," she said, her voice steady despite the storm in her chest. "We need to talk about this. All of us." James nodded, his expression serious. "Yeah, we do." The conversation that followed was raw, messy, filled with confessions and uncertainties. Emma admitted her own feelings, the way Sophie's presence had become more than just a thrill, the way she craved their connection. James confessed that he felt torn, caught between his love for Emma and the unexpected bond he was forming with Sophie. Sophie laid bare her fears, her longing, her confusion. They talked until the early hours, their voices hoarse, their emotions laid bare. In the end, they made a choice. They would try to make this work, not just as a fling, but as something deeper, something real. It wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, misunderstandings, moments of doubt. But as Emma looked at James and Sophie, their hands intertwined with hers, she felt a surge of hope. This was uncharted territory, but it was theirs to explore, and she was ready to take the risk. Emma told herself this was just for Sophie, just to help her feel better, but now she knew it was more. This was about all of them, about chasing something bold and beautiful and terrifying. Was it something only the fearless would dare to try, or did some secrets belong in the light, where they could grow into something extraordinary? Let me know what you think in the comments. I want to hear every perspective. And if you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's next. See you soon.